Okay, so I admit it. I'm kind of jumping in the middle here, but you'll forgive me for that, I'm quite sure. Mm-hmm. I actually did something today I haven't done before. I watched Naruto. Can you believe that? I've got a video from a couple months back where I showed how to draw Naruto. And I might have looked at a little glance here and there, but I never sat down and watched the show. Um, my feeling is, it's not really aimed at my demographic, obviously. But it was certainly well done. You look at these things from more than one point of view. Obviously, there's the animation and art consideration, which pretty top shelf, I would say, on that show. Very good backgrounds, nice character designs, yada yada yada. And I mean, of course, what do I know? I mean, obviously the show's been super successful, so my opinion doesn't really mean too much, actually. In the big scheme of things, I'm sure the creators of Naruto will not lose any sleep over my opinion, but it was okay. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. Most of the time when I'm watching these other animes, what I'm doing is I'm getting ideas. If you can believe this, in my own mind, a lot of times it's a question of like what's acceptable. In other words, I don't have enough of a command of all the stylistic choices one makes in this arena to be able to speak intelligently about where you would be sort of stepping over the line stylistically and saying, well, that doesn't really fit. It might be fine in this kind of cartoon, but it really doesn't fit into an anime or an anime of this nature. So there's kind of an ongoing educational process for me of getting a better grip on what it is I'm actually trying to do. I watched another one called Carol and Tuesday, which is kind of a drama. Looks to me to be about a couple of young girls who are trying to become music idols. The twist being that they live on Mars. Okay, whatever. But the thing I noticed about that show was, and stylistically very different from Naruto. But the am I saying a lot? The songwriting seemed to be pretty good on that show. They're sort of very modern, very 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 modern types of tunes. I didn't get very far into it, but so looks to me, yeah, it looks like his other hand is sort of theoretically falling behind his head. Let's see if that plays. Let's just kind of go like that, and yeah, I think that works. And then he sort of brings it in a bit. I'm going to try to keep this simple and somewhat on the blocky side stylistically. I don't know if that makes sense on the blocky side. In other words, I'm using short straight lines mostly to sort of delineate his anatomy. Boom, boom. So there we go. And then this would be whoa like that. It's gonna kind of come in there and make a little wrinkle. Okay, do we have a key after this? We do, but it's kind of a ways away. So I think what I'm going to do right here is make a duplicate. Well, okay, if I'm going to make a duplicate, I should probably finish the one I'm on, so I don't have to redraw it. which potentially will introduce chatter, obviously. Get it? Okay. So the only reason I'm adding a frame here is to allow the blanket to settle. That's really all there is to that. So now what we'll do is because he kind of sort of stands here for a bit. Okay, I'm going to turn off the sketch and sort of just see how things are going. Well, my concern is that there's a lot. There's action here on the part of Zen that was sort of predicated on the idea that Akari's stepping into, well, you can see it in the sketch. Whereas in the final version, the consensus was that having her step into it was just unnecessary motion. So now what we might have is unnecessary motion on Zen's part, like right there, that we probably should stop there. And then he drops it. So what if we went from this to this? Boom. Yep. Sorry folks, I'm making a command decision. I'm taking out those keyframes. So he just drops it. That's it. And all there is to it. And then he'll turn around. So, yeah. It's the old adage, simpler is better. Well, especially with an anime, you just don't want to have motion just to have motion. And if you sort of come from the traditional animation school, as it were. Okay, by the way, I'm going to do this. Let me look at this. Let me compare that shot to, nope, not that one. Not that one. That's the closest. Let me just check this here for a second. I'm going to go ahead and drag this over here. What is suggested, okay, so I know I'm not finishing my sentences again, but what I'm getting at here is that the thing that is suggested by the way this motion is sort of coming together is that probably we should have some animation of the blanket that shows her, kind of shows her hands, you know, engaging with the blanket, so that when he drops it, it would seem, you know, obvious that he could in fact catch it. Actually, I didn't quite erase enough there, so let's make that a little bigger. Okay. Alright, so now we're back to here. Actually, no, we're not. I'm going to go ahead and completely erase. Just redraw the hands. Okay. And just for kicks and giggles, I'm going to... I can sort of see in my mind the pose I'm going for here, so... No, darn it. Okay, So yeah, he just essentially lets it go. That's all there is to that. Switch back to this angle. Okay, so you get the point. So now, if we're going to go to here, I think what we probably should do is I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. All right, and this is going to be all about the blanket. Okay, technically, that's not the blanket right there. That's his body. So what I'm going to do, go back to what I was doing before. I'm going to do some erasing. So for all these shots, or poses, I guess you might say, frames, I am going to erase the blankie, which, by the way, means oops, that's not what I meant to do. What I meant to do was clear these keyframes. And now let's duplicate these again so that we're duplicating them without the blanket. All right, so yeah, so I think that works. Actually, doesn't it? Sounds like somebody's using the Vitamix. Yeah, that at least it's so simple. You know, it's just crazy how simple it is to sort of do something that'll make sense. You know, we're just trying to suggest that she's grabbing the blanket and, you know, sort of taking it from him. Now, it's not a blanket, I know that, obviously. Obviously. And we just want to make it look like she's doing a little something. Okay, we'll give that a crack. Let's take a look at that. Savvy poo. Yeah, I actually think this is kind of a good concept. The timing maybe needs to be massaged a little bit. Okay, yeah, so for example, okay, this shot probably should come back here. Okay, and now my sense is that this one should be pushed forward. Bloom, bloom. Yeah, we'll worry about this stuff later down here. Trust me, folks, there's a plan, but we're going to have a static shot of Akari, which probably means we need to add another layer just for the blanket. It just probably makes sense to have a blanket layer between. So let's just do that. Let's call it, since I keep calling it a blanket, even though it's not a blanket, it's actually Zen's upper garment. I'm going to go ahead and set this up. Boom. So right there, what we're actually going to wind up doing is more or less copying the blanket over top. I mean, in other words, probably copying the actual blanket from the Zen layer into this layer. So for one frame, I'll, in all likelihood, just duplicate the Zen layer, but then erase most of Zen. Because it's overlapped, you won't be able to see it, because you got to copy part of which is erased. So hope that makes sense. I'm sure it does. Okay, so where that leaves us is bloop, boom, and on we go. So cool. How are we doing on time? 15 minutes. I can't complain too much about that. I could complain, but I shan't complain. Do you want to complain? Okay, and then this is just simply where Zen turns around. So we do need the sketch layer, because this is going to be, you know, frankly, I did a pretty sloppy job here on the sketch. So why don't we go ahead and just do the radical thing and draw the stupid stuff so that at least I have a road map here, because it's way easier to get the anatomy and all that figured out when you're sketching. Okay, so now the question is, okay, his hand seems to drop pretty quickly, so I'm just going to maybe go like that, put a little indication of it in there. Okay, is there anything else I need? Yeah, I guess we'll go with sort of a, this is only going to show for one frame, so it's not like this hand anatomy is like mega essentially got to be amazing, right? All right, yeah, it's literally on the screen for 2 frames and then it disappears. So let's go ahead and animate the shoulder. Boom, 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 and boom, boom, boom. It's going to go to there. Okay, pecs. He's got Arnold pecs. That means they sort of come under a little bit, like so. Not everyone's pecs are like that. Some people's pecs are, well, different than Zen's pecs. He's got pretty good pecs. There's no denying it. The man has pecs. And biceps and all the rest. He's a tough cookie. Tough cookie. Tough cookie. Boom. Boom. Okay, what happens to his other hand? Okay, so this is a fairly quick motion. And I guess we would see his blocky bicep right here. Let's just get this drawn in here fast as we can. And the question before, of course, was do you draw nipples in an anime? I think at this point my inclination is to skip the nip. I'm gonna skip the nip. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so here we need to actually put in some sort of indication of his muscular attributes vis-a-vis his abdomen. And now what we're going to do is we're going to zip through here and we're going to knock this sucker out fast. Boom, boom, boom. 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 I guess I say boom a lot, don't I? Okay, I feel like maybe the whole hand action here is a little on the large side. Again, bearing in mind, this very quirky finger pose is only going to be on the screen for 2 frames. Which is, as I'm sure you're well aware, 1/12 of a second. So I think the reason, I don't know if you guys can hear this in the background, but the Vitamix is going. So I think what's going on is there's some organic material that's being ground up to make plant fertilizer or something. Because Valerie happens to be, she has quite the green thumb. Quite the green thumb. Just like my dad. My dad had a really good green thumb back when he was alive. Always had, when I was growing up, he always had a greenhouse kind of thing. Quite an elaborate one, actually. We had this deck, so the kitchen was on the 2nd floor. You'd go out here and actually literally step right into the greenhouse. If you can believe that. Okay, we're actually almost done here, folks. We do need to go in and do Zen's head. with all these poses, but obviously we can put the blanket. Let's go to the blanket. Okay, so there's the frame right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, and I'm going to do a little Tracy poo, and just go over top of this, like so. Okay, and then that, that's about it. Now that blanket will be over top of Akari the whole time. Okay, so Zen's head. Now, Zen's head, the question now becomes how much... oh, I see. We've got this pose that goes all the way to here. Got it. Okay, so I think I should probably modify this in the sketch just to be safe. So what I want to do is I want to use the sketch layer to map key bits of terrain, you might say. Okay, so here's his ear, and here's his ear, and here's his ear, and now, of course, this one appears on this side. Okay, eyes, or I should say eye line. Okay, now that little triangle becomes that little triangle, becomes that little triangle. That might be a little too low. Becomes that little triangle, right? So my basic theory of animation is that if you get the terrain, if you get the landmarks in the terrain right, from a spacing standpoint, if you will, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, then you can pretty well expect that you're going to get the final animation will look correct. So now, okay, and of course that's mostly behind his hair. His right eye seems to be mostly hidden. Okay, he did actually have sort of a nose indicator. So I'm going to put the nose indicator in there. Okay, what else? Again, we're talking about terrain. Okay, let's pull out a little bit. Okay, so now he actually has a fairly generous layer of hair on top of his head. I don't like the way I did that, frankly. Let me just redo that. Actually, what I want to look at is this point here. Kind of measuring that in my head. Okay, and so now I want to take this point. The thing I've noticed is that if you're not careful with Zen to get the volume of his hair right, it very quickly doesn't look like Zen. So you want to be careful. You want to be careful. Now that probably is a stupid comment because it goes without saying that you want to draw your characters accurately, right? However, it's a bit of a learning process as well. You know, sort of figuring out what characteristics are sort of essential aspects of the character. Okay, so I'm going to put that in there, that in there, that in there, and we got this long one. Okay, it seems to me that we've got a little bit of an issue here. Let's pull this. That's not what I meant to do. Shift. It seems to me that his head is not quite wide enough. Yeah. Back to this. Beaky. So what is probably the most concerning would be it kind of sort of feels like in these sketches we're losing a little bit of the sense of Zen's eyes, but we'll address that. Let's go here. Well, actually, let's make the sketch layer more transparent again. Okay, let's go back to Zen's head. Alright. So now what I'm going to do in this particular case is I'm going to make a copy of this and just see if I can cheat a little bit on this particular pose. I think that's okay. Okay, that's fine. Now we've got to draw. Do we want the onion skins on? That's kind of interesting. Oh, that's the blanket layer. How did I get on the blanket layer? Oh, no. How did I get on the blanket layer? Okay, there's Zen's head. Okay, let's turn this on. Wow. I actually wonder if I can get away with one more of these. But I would have to make a vainglorious attempt at something of... Yeah, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. I'll actually strike that. It might work. Let's go with it and see how it feels. It actually sort of worked. Okay, this we're not going to be able to get away with here. So here we'll turn the onion skins back off. And then let's just get serious about some real ink. And what I'm doing here is being very cognizant of the contours, which is why I'm drawing these sketchy lines, and then I'm going to connect them later. So if you learn anything from this video, this is probably the thing you're going to learn, is the reality is that if you get the contours right. Okay, so there's the bottom of his chin. I mean, this is, if you draw portraiture, this is what you'll always find yourself doing. You're trying to say, what are the lines that I'm certain of? Get those in there, and then you're going to connect them up, you know, to the other lines. Okay, and we can always make modifications to the body layer here to accommodate what we're doing, so no big deal. Okay, so yeah, so now we can connect these up. This seems to flatten out a bit. Okay, well that kind of looks stupid. I think I'm going to flip it. Erase. Boom, boom. That's better. That's funny. He looks like Mickey Dolenz. Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees. Why does he look like Mickey Dolenz in that picture? That's weird. Alright, so... Okay. Boom. Oops. I drew that line wrong. Okay. Now, let's connect our dots, so to speak. Okay. Again, we'll have to deal with that later. Okay, so now... I like it. I like it. That seemed to have successfully preserved. Every mark I make, I'm having a visceral reaction that says, does this still look like the same guy or not? And it seems like I've done a reasonably good job of maintaining the look of this guy. Little issue here, however. His eye in the previous frame, he's essentially looking straight out at the audience, actually. So I don't want to deviate too much from that. But all in all, I would say that came out pretty well. Cool beans. Only one frame to go. This is where it's all going to fall apart if I'm not careful. If I'm not careful. Being the operative term. Okay. So, as we know, he's going to sort of rise up to his full height, as it were. We've got some latitude on the hair, since he's completely shifting orientation to the other side. I like it. You know, it's just really kind of interesting. Every mark you make, you feel, is this still my character? Is this still the same guy? It's really, I mean, maybe I'm belaboring that point, but I mean, to me, I sort of feel that, and I'm constantly responding to whether all of a sudden he's become a different person visually, you know. And I suppose that's because in the arena of animation, this is probably the thing that I think I'm probably least good at, is maintaining the look and volume of my characters from, you know, across a lot of different poses. That one felt wrong. Okay, and I want him to look a little bit ominous here. Yeah, I think it came out alright. And this line is questionable, just because, you know, what are you going to draw? The line to delineate the hair or to delineate the neck? I think the neck's more important because the hair is obviously just behind it. So, I think we're done with ink and paint, or with ink, not paint, obviously. Okay, so now the question I have is, did I turn off the blanket? I did. So there's the blanket. Save our work, save early, save often, right? Boom, baby. Yeah, And then we're going to have a battle. I mean, that's what's coming next. So, fun, fun, fun. All right, so let's turn off the sketch layer. Let's turn off the blanket layer. Let's turn off the Akari layer. At this point, all I care about is Zen's body and Zen's head. Since his head is somewhat consistent here across these frames, let's go ahead and let's just deal with that. Okay, so I'm going to put this in behind mode so that I can literally paint. Actually, that's probably not a great idea to do it quite that way. Let's save ourselves some trouble in advance here by clarifying the border around the eyes. Okay, so I'll go ahead and hand paint that. Alright, so now what we're going to do is just sort of go like that, and then I think we can hit the fill tool a couple times, and actually that doesn't look too bad. I didn't mean to do that. So B key. Yeah, I think that worked. Okay, and so now there's one more, and again, what I want to do, ooh, that was not quite right. What I want to do is make sure we close our shapes. Make sure we protect the eye. Boom, boom. So that's what the B key is for. Alright, now can we fill that? I think so. Yeah, then just go back to the B key and touch it up. Cake, man. It's cake. It's cake. Alright, so now we're in behind mode, so that means that we can't wreck it by painting into it. Right? That's why I wanted to protect the eyes, because if you're in behind mode, once the color is there, you can see it effectively protects it. You can't paint over it, which is kind of cool. Quite useful, I say. All right, so here we're going to go ahead and let him have some right eye. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample his eye color, zoom out. Okay, we've already got the black in there for the pupils, so we should be able to just go like this. Okay, look at this. Somehow it switched back to normal mode. Not sure why. I mean, I suppose because I switched from this brush to the sort of pencil brush. So, fair enough. Fair enough, folks. I asked for that. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to normal mode. And fix that up a bit, and then actually go ahead and okay, so now we need this color. His hair is not quite black. It's sort of a steel blue. And actually, you know what? Let's go behind and then just nail it a couple times here. And let's, sorry. Okay, so now that's going to switch back to normal, obviously. And we want to make sure, we want to make sure we have closed shapes. We will deal with all the nuance. Boy, it's like it's expanding too much when it fills. Look at that. Fill tool. It's only expanding 1 pixel. Okay. Whatever. Okay, so let's just go ahead and keep fixing it up. Fixing it up. Fixing it up. Fixing it up. Whoops, don't want to do that. We're not in shadow mode here where we're using inherit alpha. So we actually do have to be careful. Okay, so now this part is kind of important. What I want to do here in normal mode is I want to animate the volumes like so. So I want to sort of focus on one clump at a time. So this is theoretically this clump, clump, clump. And I'm just thinking that that'll give a good result. You know, I don't know. I'm going to see. It's a bit of a test, you might say. It's a bit of a test. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so obviously here we've got a little bit more reflection action going on. Okay. You notice there's also another subtle color change that we will want to attend to at some point here before too long. Okay, so we're just kind of feeling it. That feels pretty good. Okay, so what I'm looking at is this color right here, which is a little different. Come on now. Normal. Yeah. See that? Just a little bit different. So yeah, I mean, he's got complicated hair. What can I say? He really, really does. Okay, and then what we have is the pencil with this color right here. A little bit more aggressive highlight right there, we notice. And then here we're just going to wing it because it's such a dramatic change in orientation. Alright, let's grab this color. A little bit of touch up. And of course we're going to have to deal with shadows here as well. Okay. Let's save that. Now if we go back to our layers, we should be able to turn, let's do the blanket. Actually, let's go to Zen Body, and let's go back here until we can get this. Okay, now we're going to have to come back and deal with the blanket in those other frames, but for now let's just go into behind mode. Oh boy, that's irritating. It's irritating. Look, control sample. Okay, there's the color. Turn the body back off, and there it is. Fill. Ah, good, it stayed on the same color, and it is in behind mode. Ah, looks pretty good. I will deal with shading it later. Don't care at this moment about shading it. Okay, and I'm going to turn the blanket off, turn this back on, and since we're here and we're doing it, let's do it. Alright, I'll worry about... Oh, come on now. Zen Body, I think I better turn his head off to see... Yep, there's definitely some hand painting going to have to happen here. Okay. Yep. I probably should be here in behind mode. And in this particular case, I'm going to jump into normal mode for a moment. just to fix up. You know, sometimes you just have to hand paint. That's all there is to it. And that's okay. As long as you're moving forward, it's fine. Alright. I don't want to go too crazy here. Okay, so now the blanket would have appeared, and so we've still got several frames where some serious blanky work's got to be done. In behind mode. So what you find is, oftentimes by clicking it a couple times, it just snaps right to as it begins to fill more aggressively. Sometimes 3 times. Whoa! My bad, people. My bad. Patch that boy. Oh, come on. Come on! Where's the leak? Ah, there's the leak. It's a little annoying, but I have to say, the problem of finding and fixing leaks is easier in Krita than it is in OpenTunes. You know, the problem seems to happen less, and it's easier to fix when it does happen. So there it is. It is what it is, folks. So now what I'm going to do is sort of try to predictively snag our potential leaks in advance, and I really need to be in behind mode, although it's not problematic enough to redo the patching I just did. Okay, that feels pretty good. Let's go back to normal mode, and we want to brush it. So here I have to be just a little more careful because I'll inadvertently paint over my outlines. So what about, oh man, gosh, there's one more. Okay. Alright, while I'm here, let's just patch this up. Yeah, I was a little too sloppy when I painted this, so hey, that's on me, man. That's on me. That's not on you. That's on me. Ah! We don't want normal mode. We want to go back to behind mode. Behind mode. Behind mode. Okay. Back to a normal mode. Back to a B key. And fixy poo. Let's zoom way in and see what we've got here. Look at that. Look at that. Oh man, it's nice. Nice to be able to like zoom way in. Okay, we're zooming way in. Oh, we're liking it. Yeah, I see a problem right there. Okay. Yeah, it's fun to fine tune it actually. Hit the N key and see actual size. So now, what you think? I'm thinking, let's color this boy. Okay. Why did the sampler not work? Ah! My bad. We want to be in behind mode. So now let's just see how far we get without... You okay there, baby doll? See how far we get without having to divert and make a bunch of corrections, right? How much fun are we going to be allowed to have here? That's the question. And it looks like this was a fairly successful venture. Now I'm going to hit the B key and color this in. Remember that his head is over top, so therefore any flaws are going to be covered by his head. Okay. Fill tool. Fill tool. Fill tool. Fill. 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 Yep, just trying to see how much we can get away with without having to manually patch and patch and patch things. Okay, right there, obviously we've got a real issue there. And that's it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take a break. It's been almost an hour. And I'm going to come back and do shadows and final touch-up. So there will be more.